I wanted to dance with my wife, but thanks to you, her, and the it doesn't seem like that's an option, does it? I turned my back on Dee and stalked back to our table. The conversations at the table stopped abruptly when I appeared. The averted eyes spoke for themselves. All our friends now knew that my wife and the jerk were making a cock and bull story out of me at that very moment. Ah, Jim, are you going to be okay? Dave asked hesitantly after he sat Dee down. I wanted to tell him what Dee had said and ask if he was going to be okay, but I couldn't get the words out of my throat. I guess I haven't stopped being a good guy yet. I'll have to work on it. It depends on what you mean by good. There were a couple of nervous laughs. I mean, yes, it was a shitty thing to do, but you two will make it work, won't you? You're not going to divorce Linda over this, are you? I leaned back in my chair, looked around the room, and thought, there are so many beautiful women in the room. Why did Mark Lavalier choose my wife? Why did she say yes? Why did she leave me? Our children were getting older and more self-sufficient. They won't be home soon, and Linda and I have already discussed what we would like to do when the children are not at home, many months ago. A small part of my mind was thinking about what the relationship between Linda and me would become. Of course, I assumed that we would be able to spend more quality time together, becoming closer. And then it dawned on me, like the proverbial ton of bricks, Linda's plans for the future might not include my presence. I felt like a complete fool. This thought evaporated all my sadness and disappointment, leaving me with only my anger. I could tell from the worried looks around the table that the expression on my face gave them the impression that my head was about to explode, or I was going to do something very, very stupid. Asked nervously, "Are you okay, Jim?" There were four beautiful young women sitting in a booth at the other end of the dance floor. I could see them right over his shoulder. Why didn't Mark Lavalier choose one of them? I watched the four ladies for a moment, then I started laughing very loud. Everyone at the table looked scared by my laughter. I was laughing so hard that people were looking at our table. Tears were streaming down my face. I was laughing so hard that when my laughter finally died down, I wiped away my tears and gave everyone a big smile. I realized that my life had just changed dramatically. I no longer had a monogamous relationship. I didn't have to worry about my wife's feelings anymore because my wife wasn't worried about mine anymore. Everyone stared at me. I smiled at Dee, took the wedding ring off my finger, and handed it to the astonished Dee. "Give this to Linda when you see her. I have things to do." I stood up and threw a tenner on the table. "This will pay for my drink. Since you encouraged Linda's cheating so much, you can pay for it." When I left the table, my former friends called out to me as I left the club. I wondered what I would say to them if they tried to follow me. The only thing I was sure of was that if any of the husbands followed me and didn't heed my warning, I would break their noses. As I walked, my thoughts were spinning feverishly. Linda was going to have her selfish fun. I would have my selfish fun, myself. Upon arriving at the hotel, I asked the young woman at the front desk if they had any full-size suites available. She told me no, but if I was looking for a bigger room, the bridal suite would be available. She listed the many amenities available in the room. "I'll take it. We will not be able to rent out the room where you are currently staying as it is already late at night. I'll pay for both rooms. My wife will live in the original room, and I will live in the suite." The young woman looked at me strangely for a moment. "I thought you were doing something special for your wife." After she gave me the key card to my new room and directions on how to get to it, I told her, "If my wife asks for my room key, don't give it to her. In fact, could you please leave specific instructions so that no one tells my wife that I'm still at the hotel if she asks?" The young girl had a curious look and a smile on her face. "I will make sure that the hotel staff is informed of your request." I went up to my old room and packed my clothes, leaving all of Elle's clothes and personal belongings in the trash cans. I took the elevator to the top floor. The bridal suite was huge, and there was even a jacuzzi on the large balcony overlooking the city. I brought an expensive tuxedo with me in case we decided to have a late drink at one of the more fashionable restaurants nearby. I put on my jacket and headed back to the club, stopping at an ATM to withdraw cash. When I returned to the club, there was a long queue to get inside. I approached the doorman as if the place belonged to me. He asked if he could help me. I smiled at him and gave him a $100 bill. He smiled back, opened the door, and let me in. My former friends were sitting at a table when I entered. I looked around the club, hoping to see what I had seen before. A table to the side of the dance floor where four beautiful young women were sitting. There weren't any men with them, so it must have been some kind of bachelorette party. It's perfect for me. I headed across the club. They noticed me as I passed the table and tried to wave and call my name. Everyone at the table turned to look at me. I ignored them as I crossed the room and casually approached a table with four ladies. Why are four beautiful ladies sitting unaccompanied? All four ladies smiled at me. The taller brunette laughed out loud and said, "We're here with our girlfriend. A stupid guy dumped her for some fool, and we're cheering her on." The brunette was definitely tipsy. "Well, if you ladies don't mind, I'd love to dance with your friend and have a chance to cheer her up." The eyes turned to the petite red-haired girl. She smiled and held out her hand to me to help her out of the booth. When we started dancing, I asked her name. "Samantha," she said. "My name is Jim. How could you date such an idiot that he could let go of such a beautiful woman?" She laughed and smiled at me. We talked a little while dancing. She went to college to become a nurse and grew up nearby. The song ended, and a slower song began. We continued to dance. The music was not so loud, and Samantha asked, "Are you married, Jim?" "We broke up. Did your wife dance with Mark Lavalier earlier?" I noticed that she disappeared after that dance. "You noticed that, didn't you?" Everyone at the club noticed it, Jim. I smiled at Samantha with my best smile. "I think you found out that we broke up the same moment I found out." Samantha smiled warmly at me, and we danced very close to the end of the song. Recently, we were both hurt by those we cared about, and it felt good to hug each other when the song ended. We returned to Samantha's table, where Samantha told the others, "I know we agreed that no men would sit with us, but I want Jim to stay with us." A brunette, clearly trying to play with me and Samantha, said, "I do not know. We agreed that no guys. How about I buy a couple of bottles of champagne to make up for it?" "I do not know. A deal is a deal." Samantha smiled at all three of them and said, "We saw Mark Lavalier leave with his wife." Three voices shouted at the same time, "Holy!" Three ladies walked around the booth to make room for Samantha and me. Before I could find out any names, the blonde next to Samantha asked, "Do you guys have an open marriage?" "Absolutely not." Then the other blonde asked, "What did she tell you?" "Nothing. She told me she went to the bathroom and slipped out with Mark through the back of the club." The brunette screamed, "That fool!" I jerked my thumb over my shoulder without turning around, and all my ex-friends had her back at that moment. The waitress came over. I asked if everyone liked champagne, and everyone smiled. "2 bottles of your most expensive champagne," I said. The girls applauded before they could ask me another question. I introduced myself. Their names were Kim, Christy, and Susan. They all studied nursing with Samantha. After the champagne arrived and everyone drank a full glass, Christy, the brunette, asked me what I was going to do with my wife. As far as I understand, we broke up the moment she walked out the door. "Do you have children?" "Unfortunately, yes, a boy and a girl, 15 and 13 years old. But in a few more years, they will be on their own, and I'm going to change my wife." Samantha took my arm and said loudly, "To hell with her. You're with me tonight." We all clinked glasses and drank champagne. I told the girls a few jokes. They told me some jokes. We laughed and drank. They were dancing with some guys and with each other, while Samantha stayed sitting with me, wrapping her arm around me. Towards the end of the evening, Christy got angry, jumped up from the table, and ran away. We all turned to see where she was going. It turned out that she decided to come over to talk to me, but Christy stopped her at my ex-girlfriend's table. We couldn't hear what was being said, but we could see them talking loudly to each other. It ended after Christy started poking Dee in the chest several times, screaming right in her face. Dee started crying and sat down again. Then Christy attacked everyone at the table. All the tables around them were laughing at the embarrassment of my former friends. When Christy returned, Kim and Susan high-fived her. Christy drank the champagne, smiled at me, and said, "None of these are going anywhere near this table for the rest of the evening." I turned around and looked at their table. They were all getting up to leave. Jane and Dee were both crying. None of them were looking in our direction. "What did you say, Christy?" "I saw how this woman plucked up the courage to come up and talk to you." So I pushed her away and let them know what I thought of people who help cheaters. You made a great impression. They obviously wanted me to forgive Linda to ease their conscience. I have to kiss you for that. Samantha grabbed my head and said, "Oh no, you don't have to." And she kissed me hard on the lips, while the other three girls cheered her on. After finishing her kiss, Samantha smiled sweetly at me. Kim said, "Get a room, you two." "Well, actually," I said, "I have a suite in a hotel down the block, and you ladies look like you can't drive. If we hurry up, we can still order champagne in the room." After I paid the bill at the bar, the four of us headed to the hotel. Samantha clung to my arm, and the other three clung to us for support. At the reception, I ordered 4 bottles of champagne to the room. When I told the receptionist that my room was a bridal suite, the ladies started giggling. Going up in the elevator, the 3 ladies began to sing the wedding march. Samantha blushed like a beetroot, but clung to me even tighter. When we reached the door of the room, the lady started laughing, saying that I should carry the bride over the threshold. Samantha looked at me with her big, beautiful eyes and said, "You don't have to if you don't want to." I pushed open the door, picked Samantha up in my arms, and carried her into the room. When I entered the room, Samantha put her arms around my neck and kissed me hard. The ladies thought it was funny and stopped teasing us when Christy noticed the jacuzzi on the balcony. Before I could get Samantha down, all 3 of them had stripped down to their bras and panties and were sitting in the jacuzzi. I put Samantha down on the ground. She kept holding my hand and smiling at me. There was a knock on the door. It was a champagne delivery to the room. We served champagne to the ladies, who were joking and giggling. Susan told me that I was too dressed and needed to take it all off. I laughed and told them that I was keeping Samantha company. They shouted at Samantha to get into the jacuzzi, but she just smiled and dragged me back to the room. We headed to the bridal room, and her friends sang the wedding march from the balcony, laughing hysterically. I woke up in the morning with Samantha wrapped around me and 3 other naked ladies lying across a king-sized bed. They must have climbed in here after Samantha, and I fell asleep. I slipped out of bed, and Samantha was watching me. I smiled at her, and she smiled back. "Did you have fun, Jim?" "Yes, the best night of my life." "Are there any regrets?" "Absolutely none." "Come take a shower with me." Samantha slid out of bed and dragged me into the bathroom. "Now I want you in the shower," she said. When Samantha and I got out of the shower, we found that our loud lovemaking had woken up the ladies. They suffered from a hangover, but were happy ordering room service and drinking mimosa. Christy said, "I can't wait to get in that shower. The 2 of you made it sound like it was the best shower ever." All 3 girls burst out laughing when Samantha and I smiled at each other. After everyone took a shower, they left, except for Samantha, who asked if I would give her a ride home. As we drove, she snuggled up to me. "Jim, I know what your wife did was terrible, but you can still go back to her if you don't. I'd be glad if we could see each other again." Samantha smiled at me hopefully. "I'd like that, Samantha," I replied. "At the moment, I have no intention of staying with my ex-wife. I really had fun with you. You're what I need right now. So call me if you think we can be together." I kissed Samantha at her door when she opened it. Christy was sitting on the couch and smiled at me, waving her hand as I left. I realized that I was postponing making a decision about what to do with Linda. Returning to the club was a sudden reaction to Linda's infidelity. It didn't solve my problem with Linda, but it made me feel a lot better. When I got home, I took a break and flopped into a chair in the living room. I didn't bother to turn on the light as I was thinking about how to end my ruined marriage with the least harm to my children. After a while, I have no idea how long, I heard the sound of a car in the driveway, then the turn of the key in the lock. Jim, I'm home." Her voice sounded exactly the same as it always did when she returned home from an errand. She closed the front door and turned on the light. I turned to look at her. She looked exactly the same. The blue dress still adorned her as it had in the evening. Her dark hair fell down her back in the same way. Her posture, shoulders, face, rings on her fingers, everything was exactly the same. It's like nothing has changed at all, as if she hadn't spent the whole night and the whole morning betraying me. With a jerk, it's impossible, I thought. There must be some visible difference, something to indicate what she did, at least some shame on her face. There was nothing. "It's just me, as old as ever," she said with a gentle smile. Of course, She knew what I was thinking. Nothing has changed here. Nothing has changed. My love for you is exactly the same as yesterday. I wish I could say the same thing listening to myself. I realized how dispassionate it sounded. Jim, with the look of a deadpan, I stared at Linda, pointing to our bedroom. Don't start, go take a shower. After trying to say a few words while I kept pointing at our bedroom, Linda finally left. After the shower, she went back downstairs. Jim, where are my clothes from last night? I think it's in the hotel room where you left it. You didn't bring my clothes home, no? Did you leave something important there? Linda looked like she was going to say something when she realized that her next statement would be something about how inconsiderate I was. Instead, she sat in silence. When she realized how incredibly stupid that would sound, she asked, "Why did you do that, Linda?" Linda sighed. It was Mark Lavalier. He is rich and famous and can get any woman he wants. Last night when he asked me to dance, I felt like the most popular girl in the room. He made me feel special. Linda was still beaming from last night when she said that. I saw that she had disconnected from our conversation as she fondly recalled the moments of last night. That was the moment when I realized that it was really over. Linda will always treasure her time with Mark Lavalier more than any moment with me. I was just an afterthought. Do you love him? No, I don't love him. I love you, Jim. You and I have a completely different understanding of how to treat the person we love. I could tell by the surprised expression on Linda's face that she felt entitled. I was just a crybaby because my ego was hurt, which was sad because she crushed my ego solely to satiate her own. I came back to you, Jim, because I love you. If he had asked you to stay, to become his girlfriend or wife, would you be here now? Linda hesitated, then noticed that I was watching. Of course not. I love you, Jim. You hesitated, Linda. I understand what that look means. You would have been there if he had asked. It was just one night. It was just love. The discussion is over. I have a lot to think about. Pack some things for yourself and the kids and stay with them at your parents' all week. But Jim, the discussion is over. If you really want to solve the problem urgently right now, given how I feel, you won't get the results you hope for this time. There was anger in my voice and in my eyes. Linda packed her bag and left as soon as she was out of sight. As soon as she was out of sight, I began to implement my plan. I had an epiphany when I saw Linda standing at the entrance in her blue dress, looking completely unchanged. I knew something had to change if I was going to get through this. I called my boss and told him I needed a 2-week vacation. Then, I rented a truck and bought some supplies from the hardware store: wood, drywall, paint, and 2 exterior doors. Once at home, I grabbed my crowbar and got to work. First, I removed the front door and the windows surrounding it. After cutting out a larger empty space, I installed 2 front doors, putting the old front door on the right side and the new one on the left. Then, I decorated the wall right along the main entrance in the middle of the house and put up drywall. I was going to make a division. I installed a new rear door on the left side, where the new kitchen was supposed to be. The new kitchen would face the living room, just like the other side. The study turned into a 3rd bedroom on the left side, on my side, while the dining room became the 3rd bedroom on the right side, on Linda's side. When I was done, each side of the duplex was almost exactly the same, except for the detached garage on Linda's side. Later, I would build another garage on my side. I changed the lock in the garage and the code on the garage door so that only I had access. I also put up a fence in the backyard, cutting the backyard exactly in half. Now, I had a duplex. I called the kids every day and told them I was working at home. Linda kept asking for a conversation, but I kept telling her that I wasn't in the mood to listen to what she had to say. I called Samantha a few days later, just to hear her voice and maybe get a chance to spend more time with her. "I thought you'd forgotten about me," she said. "I can't stop thinking about you. Are you going to ask me out?" "No, stop teasing me. No, I'm really not going to ask you out. I was thinking more about going away for the weekend, just you and me." "Really?" "Yes, where to?" "The Bahamas sounds great. Can you leave this weekend?" "Leave on Thursday and return on Tuesday." "Yes, yes, yes. Just take your phone and passport with you. We'll buy everything we need there." After we told each other how much fun we were going to have, I had to let her go so I could pay for the plane ticket and book a hotel room. A last-minute trip to the Bahamas didn't come cheap, but what the hell? If Linda divorces me, she gets half of our savings and my salary for child support. I smiled when I realized that it was as if Linda was paying for half of the trip with Samantha. I transferred our savings account to a bank account in my name only. I also changed my salary so that it would be credited to the account. I didn't think Linda would cancel the credit card, but just in case, I wanted to have access to the money. I worked 16 hours a day to put all the walls back in place, a little unfinished on my part. On Wednesday, I managed to finish and paint the central wall on Linda's side. I knew that later I would have to separate electricity, gas, and water, but for now, since Linda's side was using the same gas and electricity, Linda couldn't turn off my side. On Wednesday evening, I told Linda to bring the kids home in the morning. On Thursday morning, I locked my part of the house and sat on a chair in front of the entrance, waiting for their arrival. When they arrived and got out of the car, they were all standing on the front lawn. In a daze, Emma spoke first. "Dad, what did you do?" "I turned our house into a duplex. Don't you like it?" All three of them turned and looked at me like I was an idiot, standing there with their mouths open. "Don't worry, guys. I finished the right side and moved your stuff to your new rooms." I showed the children the left side of the new house, while Linda took the children's bags to their rooms. They were stunned. Our short tour ended with us all gathered in the living room on the right side of the house. "Tommy, but Dad, the living room is much smaller." "Don't worry, guys, you'll never notice the difference," I assured them. "Actually, I need to install a garage on the other side of the house, and when I do, I'm going to install a pool with a jacuzzi." This made the children smile. Linda told the children to unpack their bags. She looked at me as if she wanted to talk to me, but I followed the children, helping them put their things away and making sure they had what they needed. After they put away their things, I took out some sandwiches that I bought at a local deli, and we had lunch at the kitchen table. Emma asked me, "Dad, what is all this about?" But mostly she was watching Linda's reaction. After spending the last few days with Linda, Emma and Tommy obviously knew something was wrong, and that their mom was avoiding their questions. "Oh, we're getting close to becoming empty nesters," I said. "I realize that things won't stay the same forever. I'm just getting ready, that's all." "Gee, Dad, you could at least discuss this with us first to find out how we feel about it," Emma replied. "Well, it was actually your mom's idea," I said. "She said she had decided that we needed a change, and she needed something else." I stared at Linda with a grin on my face. Linda looked amazed. "Mom, why did you make such an important decision and not discuss it with us?" Emma asked. "Tommy, yes, Mom. Don't you care what we think?" Linda, looking confused, said, "It was just a misunderstanding. Your father just misunderstood how I felt." "I do not know, honey. You made your intentions very clear," I said. "In fact, as soon as I saw that you were fully committed to your decision, I realized that there was no turning back." Linda looked like she was going to cry and left the room. Tommy asked, "What's wrong with Mom lately? She's crying about everything." I shrugged and told them they should ask her. Before Emma could ask another question, I told them that I had a trip planned out of town and would be back in a few days. I told them that I would not be able to be contacted during my trip, but that I would call them every evening. I kissed the tops of their heads and quickly headed for the door. I was wondering if they noticed that I didn't say goodbye to their mom, who was in the bedroom. I picked Samantha up from her apartment, and we hit the road. It was one of the best moments of my life. We flew first class, stayed at a 5-star resort, and enjoyed a weekend full of fun, sun, sand, waves, food, and drinks. Even better, Samantha was very grateful and constantly tried to show how much she enjoyed being with me. By the time it was time to return, we were both completely tanned, and I knew every inch of Samantha's fantastic body. On Tuesday, I dropped Samantha off at her apartment. Samantha kissed me very passionately at the front door. "Do you want to spend another night with me?" "Yes, I would love to, but I need to meet face to face sometime, and you have classes tomorrow. Call me before going to bed. I need to hear your voice before I go to bed." I kissed her one last time and said, "With pleasure." I drove home, smiling to myself. Samantha told me last night that she could imagine herself falling in love with a guy like me. As I was driving down the street to my house, I saw Linda's car parked in her driveway. I parked on the road in front of my part of the house, wanting to avoid talking to Linda while I was unpacking. Linda knocked on my front door. You've arrived. Yes, it is. Can we talk? Of course. What do you want to talk about? May I come in? No, you're not allowed to be on my side. To be clear, this is my personal living space, and you are not welcome on this side. Never. Linda, clearly shaken, stared at me for a moment before turning to go back to her room. The reality that I wasn't going to live on her side of the duplex had just become reality. We were both sitting at her kitchen table. Jim, I love you, and I want everything to go back to normal. That's not going to happen. Why? Because, in case you haven't noticed yet, you did something that changed my attitude towards you forever. It shouldn't be like that. Actually, it is. Nothing will undo what you've done and how I feel about it. But I love you. I gathered my thoughts. Let's say we were on a date as a couple with our friends. You left me and went off with another man and spent the whole night and the next morning making love to him. If you had done this on our first date, would there have been a second one? But Jim, it was Mark. I don't care who it was. You chose someone else over me. Jim, I keep trying to tell you that I didn't choose Mark over you. So you didn't choose to sneak out the back of the club, didn't you? Choose to make love to Mark? It was just one night. You've had your whole life to show me how much you love me. The moment someone more famous spoke to you, I turned into trash. Does that mean I have to keep you away from all the famous athletes, famous actors, famous politicians? You know, there's going to be a marathon this weekend. Are you going to use the winner? Jim, it's not fair. In a low, even tone, I said, so here it is now. You want me to be fair. You want a chance to minimize your betrayal, a good chance to talk me out of my anger over what you did, a good chance to shame me for feeling betrayed, a fair chance to blame me for not putting our family above my own pain. It seems that I am the only one who is expected to be fair in this relationship. I reached across the table and took her hand. She smiled and took my hand in both of hers. I looked deep into Linda's eyes, knowing that I was going to hurt her. Linda needed to know exactly how our new relationship would develop in the future, and yes, I was also excited to be able to show her what it was like. It's too late, Linda. Is it too late? Yes, it's too late. I found another one. No, Linda. She pulled her hands away from my palm as if my hand was on fire. You know who it is, I'm sure. Dan and your friends told you who I was with that night after you left, the redhead. I danced with the one who hugged me tightly while we danced, the woman who replaced you for the anniversary that you threw away. When the words replaced you and threw you away reached her, I looked into Linda's eyes and saw sadness. I realized that Dan must have sent Linda photos of Samantha and me dancing slowly together, looking like lovers. With anger boiling in her voice, Linda said, "Are you doing this to get back at me? Did you throw some 24-year-old girl in my face to get even?" 21. Actually, I spent 4 days with her in the Bahamas. Do you know that dream vacation that you and I have always wanted to go on? It was impressive. I knew I had a big smile on my face when I said that, but I couldn't help myself. The weekend was really impressive. Linda looked at me intently after I finished speaking. I could see that my words had made her very angry. I knew that the smirk on my face had intensified her anger. I reminded myself of the children and took a deep breath, relaxing my face with an effort so that my grin disappeared. With a hot look in her eyes, which I knew was going to be followed by some soul-searing condemnation, Linda opened her mouth and pointed her finger at me. But when she saw my grin reappear, she realized that I knew every word she was going to say. Linda froze, then she exhaled slowly, closed her mouth, and put her hand on the table. We sat quietly, staring at each other. I knew Linda wanted to yell at me, set my ass on fire, put me in my place because of what I'd done, but she realized that she had no moral grounds left on which to stand. The lever she was used to in our relationship was based on love and trust, the same love and trust that she had casually erased for one night of love. Linda finally realized that what she had done had cost her more than she had imagined. I'm sure that when Linda decided to sleep with Mark, she thought that she would just spin some chips accumulated over the years of our life together. She finally had a suspicion that she had foolishly put everything on the line. Linda sat quietly for a while, staring at her hands folded together on the table. It doesn't matter. I love you. Yes, you continue to be sure that your love means something special. Special. Why do you think your love is important to me after what you've done? It's quite obvious that my love for you means nothing to you. So why should I cherish your love? But I don't want to lose you. Well, I don't understand why you thought you could completely destroy my trust in you and expect to keep me. You took me for granted, and now you don't deserve me. Linda looked confused. I'm going to my room. I still have a lot of housework to do. I'll be back to have dinner with you and the kids. Please don't bother me until then. I got up and went back to my apartment. Linda was crying when I left. It was terribly painful to break up with her. I wanted to hug her like I used to, but deep down, I knew there was no going back to what we were. The Linda I thought of as my wife did not exist and will never be again. Everything I'll ever have with her will be a painful reminder of everything we could have had, everything she carelessly destroyed without thinking or feeling a drop of guilt. Before dinner, the children and I went to my part of the house to look around. I showed them the new kitchen area and how I was going to cut down the back wall and make it completely glass so that there was a view of the new pool. They looked worried as they looked at the fence dividing the backyard in half. They realized that this side would be Dad's then. I showed them where their new rooms would be on my side of the house. Why do I need 2 bedrooms in the house, Dad? Tommy asked. Because this side will be my home, and that side will be your mother's home. Emma asked, Are you and Mom getting divorced, Dad? Mom doesn't say anything, no matter how much we ask. No, we just broke up. I don't want to be a weekend dad, so I thought I'd just split up the house, and the two of you could live on whichever side you wanted that day. Before we could continue, Linda poked her head in the front door to announce that dinner was ready. We ate in silence. Linda was tense, and it was clear that the children had learned more about what was going on. Tommy blurted it out too loudly. I'll move in with Dad as soon as he finishes decorating my room. Linda had a shocked expression on her face. Did Dad say that you're breaking up? She asked. We don't. It's just a misunderstanding, and we haven't finished discussing it yet. Emma slammed her palm on the table and shouted, Who changed it? I want to know. Emma and Tommy looked from Linda to me and back again. I stared at Linda. Linda stared at her plate. When Linda started crying, the children got their answer. I told the kids that their mom was tired and needed some rest. I helped Linda up and walked her to her bedroom, undressed her, and put her to bed. I gave her a quick kiss on the forehead, as if she were a little child who had woken up from a nightmare. I turned off the light and closed the door. I focused on my feelings for Linda. I would feel as I would for one of my children, an adult child who committed a terrible crime and was sentenced to prison for the rest of his life. I would still love my child, but he would no longer be a part of my daily life. For thoughts, I went into Tommy's room first. He was lying on his bed and texting with his friends. I asked him if he wanted to talk about it, and he said, No, not really. I went to Emma's room. Emma was angry and crying. Why did she do that, Dad? I replied, You'll have to ask her. Can't you just forgive her? Emma sighed. I know, but I want us to stay together as a family. We are together, I said. I'm just not going to sleep in the same room with your mother anymore. I hugged Emma. We said we loved each other, and I went back to my part of the house. This has become our new norm. I always left for work before the kids got up, so our morning classes didn't change. Linda and I still divide our time to take the kids to their friends, to the band, and to sports. We still had our usual family dinner together whenever we could, on Linda's side of the house. Linda tried to talk to me about us about once a week, but I turned her off, saying I didn't want to discuss it. Another obvious change was the school functions. I have never stood or sat next to Linda during our children's school activities. If Linda sidled up to me, I immediately apologized and went to the bathroom. When I came back, I would sit down or stand somewhere else. I was never alone for long, as at least one of the single or divorced women we knew quickly found herself by my side. And yes, they always asked, and my answer was, they broke up over the next month. I bought new clothes, new appliances, new kitchen cabinets, and new furniture for my side. My side has turned into a swanky new bachelor pad with a giant TV and a new entertainment system. When I bought a new top-end convertible, Linda tried to ask me about our finances. Jim, can we afford all this? This car must have cost a fortune. I replied, Well, Linda, my car was 8 years older than yours, and I needed a new one. You always bought a new car twice as often as I did. So I just put a few of those missed years into my new car. As for everything else new, you really didn't expect me to live in a shack, did you? And the furniture, I thought I was being tactful, not forcing you to give up any of your favorite furniture that you bought to decorate your house. I would be happy to share our furniture. I've never been attracted to your taste in furniture. Have you never said anything before? I've never said anything before because I wanted you to be happy, and furniture didn't really matter to me. I let her think about this statement for a few moments. Don't worry, we have enough money, I continued. In fact, the house is paid for, and once the kids move out, my side will be too big for my needs. I will rent out my part of the house for additional income, so there will be no problems with money. Linda gave me her best smile, her someone's going to be lucky today smile, and reached out to squeeze my shoulder. I'm not complaining, she said. I like your new car. You've been training, and you look beautiful in your new clothes. Thanks. I couldn't take all the credit for it. Tommy and Emma wanted me to buy a convertible so they could drive it, and Samantha helped me choose new clothes. And furniture. We have very similar tastes, I added. Linda's smile faded at the mention of Samantha, and her hand dropped from my shoulder. Oh, I was just wondering, Linda said, then turned and walked away. I didn't try to throw Samantha in Linda's face, but Samantha was becoming a big part of my life. I also realized that now I think about Samantha quite often and very little about Linda's feelings. Samantha started to become a regular on my side of the house at this point. Tommy and Emma started spending most of their time by my side. Tommy had already moved to my side as his master bedroom. Emma, who mostly stayed on Linda's side, started hanging out with Samantha more and more. Samantha seemed to have become Emma's cool older sister. Soon, Samantha started spending all weekends and most weeknights with me. The only disagreement Linda expressed was when I insisted that Samantha come with me to our family dinner for the second time. Linda was polite, but everyone could tell that she didn't want it to become commonplace. The next day, Linda bumped into me as I was leaving for work. Jim, I appreciate you talking, but I wish you wouldn't bring your girlfriend during our dinner. This is our time to be a family with the children, she said. That's great in the future. I will not come to dinner when Samantha is not there, but I will also have an open invitation for the children to have dinner with me, with or without Samantha if they want to. That's not fair, Jim, Linda argued. This is the only time we can be together as a family. So are we being honest again, Linda? I asked. Okay, to be honest, Samantha is becoming a big part of my life, and I want her to be more involved in it. Samantha and the kids get along great. I don't think excluding Samantha from our family dinners is fair to her, fair to me, or fair to the kids. If you want to exclude her, you're going to exclude me too. But Jim, Linda, your honesty has always been that you got your way to hell with my feelings. I bet you thought you were being honest when you slipped out the back door to use Mark's lavatory, even though we no longer live together. It was amazing to see how easily Linda thought she could still manipulate me. Linda thought she had leverage over me beyond the well-being of the children. Linda, you threw honor out the window that night. So, if you don't like it, the fair thing would be to start cooking all the dinners on my side, and I'll let you come when we have them. Samantha is a great cook and loves to do it with tears in her eyes. Linda said, I'm sorry I brought it up. Samantha is more than welcome anytime she wants to come to dinner. After the pool and jacuzzi were completed, Tommy especially liked that Kim, Christy, and Susan came to hang out by the new pool. They flirted shamelessly with Tommy. I know they were having a friendly competition to see who would make him blush the brightest. At first, they started competing by wearing more and more form-fitting swimsuits. In the end, Christy couldn't really compete because her big breasts wouldn't allow anything too small. Otherwise, they would have fallen out. But Christy won after she kissed Tommy in the pool, pressing her big breasts against him. Tommy couldn't get out of the pool for a good 10 minutes, even though the water was cold. Tommy was definitely the real winner in their competition. As a result, Tommy gained more trust from the girls and made a girlfriend at school as soon as they met. Tommy's girlfriend, the girls stopped flirting with Tommy and treated his girlfriend as the happiest girl in the world. Samantha has some great friends, and no, I never let Linda come to my side of the house. I didn't want Linda to complicate my relationship with Samantha, but unfortunately, a few years later, Samantha graduated from high school and we broke up. I saw it on Samantha's face when we went to Susan's wedding together. I knew that, in fact, I was becoming her sugar daddy because of our age difference. It didn't matter to me, but I could tell it mattered to Samantha. Don't get me wrong, we got along wonderfully. We spent the whole weekend together, and I got to know most of her family. We often went on vacation together, sometimes with the children. When she mentioned that she was thinking about moving, I proposed to her. She told me that she was honored that I invited her, but that she wanted to try a family tradition. I told her that I would like to start a new family. She never said it, but I could see the conflict in her eyes. I was the perfect man for her, just not the right age. Unfortunately, I felt like the other woman was taking me for granted for being a great guy. As subtly as I could, I tried to make Samantha realize that her long list of standards was becoming a wall that no man could climb. Trust is the foundation of a healthy relationship, but as with Linda, I was a victim of my own success. I could say that Samantha thought there were a dime a dozen guys like me. I pointed out to Samantha that Linda was thinking the same thing, and look where she is now. When Samantha answered, "I would never have been so stupid," our fate was sealed. In the end, I told Samantha that I understood, and if she changed her mind, I would always be there for her. Maybe we'll meet again later in life when she feels that the age difference is not so important. I don't regret a single moment I spent with Samantha, and at least she had the decency to talk to me honestly instead of sneaking out the back door of the club. As for Linda's friends, my former friends, I ran into them from time to time. They tried to convince me that I should go back to Linda after they released their tripe. I always ended up saying, "It sounds very convincing now. Tell me how you feel when your spouse cheats on you." Because from what I saw that night, they not only considered cheating acceptable but also encouraged it. In fact, I don't think it was an accident that we ended up at a club that Mark Lavalier was known to frequent. It just so happened that I had the hottest wife. Karma is what it is, and a few months later, I heard that the girls had decided to move their girls' party to a new dance club that Mark Lavalier frequented without telling their husbands. One of Dave's work friends mentioned to Dave that he had seen Dee dancing with Mark at the club. He even mentioned that Mark disappeared about an hour later, around the same time that a table full of ladies left the club. Dave's friend didn't see Dee leave with the band. All the wives denied that they were there at all, and there must have been a mistake. A few days later, Dave's friend sent a photo of him and his girlfriend at a club. In the background, Mark Lavalier could clearly be seen talking to his wives at the table. The wives eventually confessed, but they all said that no one left with Mark. Of course, their stories didn't match, and eventually, the true story came out. But not wanting to give away their friend, the wives refused to say who was the one who left with Mark. Unfortunately for them all, when they finally called Dave, it was too late for any of them. There were too many lies, and trust was undermined, from what I was told. When all the husbands met to compare the wives' stories, Dave's final comment summed it up. They've been covering for each other for a long time. They all lied too easily to our faces. This is not their first girls' party. How do we know it wasn't just her turn to have fun with Mark Lavalier or someone else for that matter? Every husband saw the expression on their wives' faces when Mark Lavalier came to our table that evening. Everyone heard how their wives condoned Linda's behavior and how lucky she was to have this chance after the first bachelorette party, which Linda attended. All the guys knew that their wives were subsequently turned on because Linda talked about her love with Mark at first. The husbands were happy to get a little extra excitement in the bedroom, but a couple of months later, one of the husbands joked to the other about how much he hated sleeping on silk sheets. After comparing, both husbands realized that the silk sheets were new and both sets were white. In a conversation with other husbands, 4 beds with new white silk sheets were discovered. The last nail. The favorite new pose of all 4 wives was the pose of a rider with her eyes closed while their husbands pushed into them. Each wife had made it very clear that they should use them from below. The husbands were also told to keep quiet until their wives were done. At first, the husbands realized that they were just replacing dildos while their wives fantasized about Mark Lavalier, which was bad enough. But after Dave's night with Mark, the husbands became worried that their wives were reliving their own nights with him. All 4 couples divorced within a year. I found out about all this because Dave was the first to get divorced, and he apologized to me after telling me what led to his divorce. Later, each husband personally apologized to me for his role that night with Linda. Everyone was basically talking. If I had stood up for you, one said, then maybe I would have sent a clearer message to my own wife, and we would still be married. As for Mark Lavalier, is his picking up married women eventually angered the wrong man. No one knows who did it, but when Mark Liler came out of the back of the club with his latest conquest, someone in a ski mask tasered Mark. Before Mark could recover, the guy pulled out a hammer and hit Mark in his private parts. While Mark was screaming, holding on to his crotch, the guy literally crushed both of Mark's kneecaps. Despite the fact that they had the video, no one was ever brought to justice. There were too many husbands who had reasons and opportunities. Mark has lost the ability to walk, and probably the ability to get an erection or even urinate normally. As for Linda, the last time we talked about us was the day Emma moved out. We were already divorced, and I had already rented out my part of the house and moved into a condominium by the sea. Standing in the driveway, Linda asked if she could talk to me after Emma had checked out to go to college. Jim, I still love you. I made a terrible mistake and have regretted every day since. Since then, I haven't even dated or even looked at another man. I know you haven't had a serious relationship with anyone since Samantha, and I'd like you to move in with me again, just to see how it goes. Then Linda took the necklace off her neck and handed it to me. My wedding ring was hanging on the end of it, the ring I gave to Dee the night Linda dumped me. Linda looked at me with hope in her eyes. You still don't understand what went wrong, do you, Linda? That night you thought you could test my love for you, when in fact it was a test of your love for me. But I really love you. No, you like what we once had. You like that you had a perfect marriage, a perfect husband, perfect children. You like that I didn't treat you like property, like a trophy wife, that we shared important decisions. You like that our lovemaking, although less frequent, was as intense as when we first met. You like that I always took care of how you felt ahead of everyone else. You like that I gave you financial security so that you could do what you wanted. But what you liked most in the world was that I trusted you without a doubt. You love me more now than before because you know that you will never find anyone else who would make you as happy. No one will be as in love with you as I once was. Linda didn't move. She still held the necklace at arm's length, but her hand turned white as she clung to it in a desperate grip. You didn't appreciate what you had, and now it's gone. I can't be around you anymore. I will never put you in such a position again, so that you have the opportunity to do what you did to me. I always thought it was us against the whole world, but you killed us when you ran away to be with Mark Lavalier. Linda began to cry. How many times do I have to say that I regret going with him? It was never about the brand, Linda. You thought you were lucky when Mark Lavalier decided to take you home with him, but I was lucky too when I was at the bottom and your friends were trying to convince me that I was a fool, that I was upset. I realized that you showed me that we really are a wonderful couple, but not because of you, but because of me. You left because my love was so strong, not yours. My love would never even think of doing what you did. My love was the music that we also danced to, which made us so special. When I was sitting at that damn table, angry, thinking about these things, I saw Samantha across the room looking sad. When she saw me looking at her, she smiled her wonderful smile, reminding me that I am still a man and I have a chance to be happy with someone that I could put my love and devotion into. A new we, another us. Then you opened my eyes and set me free with that. I climbed into my convertible and drove away with a big smile on my face. I couldn't wait to get home. Samantha quit her job out of town and moved in with me last week. Since then, she has done an excellent job convincing me that she always needs me in her life. Trust is a wonderful thing,